a history of Britain's love-hate relationship with Europe.
But I'm realistic. In a negotiation, what you want to have is a clear idea of what you want to retrieve. And those powers over employment and social legislation that are doing so much damage to our businesses that need to compete not just with France and with Germany, but with China and India, who are producing 4 million graduates a year.
Because I believe in democracy. I believe that Britain should control its own events. Who comes into our country, who can be told to leave our country, what our foreign policy should be, what our economic policy should be decided by the British people in a British Parliament. It's not rocket science.
That the public of Great Britain know that this is a ploy and that the only way to succeed globally and mixing with the rest of the world is being outside of the European Union.
Hello, good afternoon. The campaign for Britain to leave the EU has revealed the names of 250 business leaders supporting it. They include the hotelier Sir Rocco Forte, the JD Wetherspoon boss Tim Martin, and the founder of Phones for You, John Codwell.
So why do we tie ourselves to the one part of the world that is not experiencing significant economic growth? Over the last 10 years, China's economy has doubled in size, India's economy has doubled in size, Ethiopia's economy has doubled in size, but the Eurozone, incredibly, was the same size at the end of last year as it had been in 2006. Every continent on this planet has grown over the past decade, except Antarctica and Europe.
In this that is about being on the left or being on the right, it's about, do you want your country back? Do you want control of your borders, of your life, of your laws, of your courts? And to me, that is a positive, upbeat, sensible argument. Most people around the world want to control their own destiny. We cannot do so as members of this union.
Included on the list of 250 business leaders expressing their personal opinion is the former boss of HSBC, Michael Gagan, the hotelier, Sir Rocco Forte, as well as the entrepreneur and investor Luke Johnson from Patisserie Valerie.
It shows the number of Britons wanting to leave the European Union has risen to its highest point. The poll suggests 53% of people want to leave. The 28-nation bloc respondents say last November's terror attacks in Paris and recent sexual assaults in the German city of Cologne made them more likely to vote to leave the EU.
According to one poll conducted earlier this year, the majority of the British electorate would vote for the UK to leave the EU, with 51% opting for the exit.
We're different from Europe. We don't have the same legal system, we don't have the same approach to life.
Many people are tired of laws being made that affect us, without real consultation.
I don't really see any reason why we shouldn't get out.
There are plenty of Eurosceptics among the general population. For example, almost 4 million people voted for the anti-EU UKIP party in the last election, more than for the Scottish National Party and Liberal Democrats combined.
If we do what you say, will you be able to repeal many of those laws that will then help business to prosper, because they're not at the moment, but many of the laws that we've brought in are on the back of Europe and we've gold-plated them, so can we have the assurance that you'd be able to take them back?
That's absolutely right. If we get out of the social and employment legislation that's doing so much damage, we stop damage for the future, but we can also then look again at the rules that have been imposed on British business, because so often we get in Whitehall a gold plating of something that's been agreed in Brussels that does further damage. And we've got to both reduce the future flow of regulation and reduce the stock of regulation that business faces in this country. Okay. It's the biggest challenge for us, because we face such competition overseas.
One unanswerable point, which is that if you want to take back control of huge sums of money that this country is sending to Brussels, if you want to take back control of our politics and our democracy, then you've got to vote leave.
Growth in the world is happening in China, in India. At last, Africa is beginning to wake up, and we can get our rightful seat back on those world bodies and help re-galvanize world free trade. which have massive benefits, some of the most disadvantaged citizens of the world, we would also, if we did that, ensure that world regulation was negotiated with like-minded allies to the advantage of this country.
Why are we paying to belong to the world's only stagnant customs union? Paying £19 billion gross, £11 billion net every year, right? To put this in context, in the last, we just heard about the cuts and, you know, the Labour MPs were standing against all these coalition reductions. In the last Parliament, the 2010 to 2015 Parliament, according to the IFS, the entire austerity programme saved £36 billion. Over that lifetime of that same Parliament, our gross contribution to the EU was £85 billion, our net contribution was £42 billion. So even if you insist on taking the net figure, that one clean excision would have wiped out the whole of the austerity programme and still given us enough left over to take a penny off income tax.
The EU Eurozone from 1992, in marked contrast to the old European community of 1975, has crept into every nook and cranny of our life, and it has become entrenched in the National Health Service. And this June, we have a lifetime opportunity to get it out and to make a real change which will have profound effect on the National Health Service. It is so intimate. It involves your families, it involves your homes, it involves your life. This is not a decision for a remote bureaucracy in Brussels. We will restore legal powers and democratic control of the NHS to voters in the UK if they vote leave, as I hope they will do on June. If that happens, we will be able to protect our NHS from EU interference.
Over the years, Europe transformed from an intimate free trade area of 9 countries to a political union of 28. The UK remains a reluctant member of the EU, with its citizens the least likely to identify themselves as European, and deeply worried about a mass movement of people that has seen net migration to the UK from within the EU top 1.5 million since 1997.
We've given away control of our... We want our borders back, we want our passports back, we want our country back, and if everyone that agrees with us goes out to vote on June the 23rd, we will make it UK Independence Day.
It is important, isn't it, if you're trying to push...
I don't know when we'll get on to it. We're almost finished the interview.
How do you know? Might have you on here for another 10-15 minutes.
I very much doubt that.
You're right, I'm not going to have you on for 10-15 minutes. But if you're going to convince people of an argument, they've got to believe in the big players that are there.
Please stop this. You misled me into coming in here today, and every question you've asked has been about me. I'm campaigning amongst my 1 million followers on social media, on the radio, on the television, on platforms, on the streets, for Britain to leave.
I just find it absolutely bizarre that we're being lectured by the Americans about giving up our sovereignty and giving up control. See, they wouldn't dream of sharing sovereignty.
So does he
They wouldn't dream of it.
So is he in danger of making America look like a hypocrite?
Not in danger of it. I'm afraid he is. What are they full of? These Bremainers? They're full of gloom and pessimism. You know what really irks me about the Bremainers, the people, the Remain camp, is that they keep saying, "I'm a Eurosceptic. I don't really like Europe, but I think it's all terrible. But we've got to stay in because otherwise they'll beat us up." Is their basic argument. And I think that's absolutely woeful.
It's a natural, healthy thing for a democracy to live under its own laws while trading and cooperating with every other country in the world. We are the 5th largest economy on the planet. We're the 4th military power. We're one of 5 members of the UN Security Council. How much bigger do we have to be before we have the confidence to raise our eyes to more distant horizons and rediscover that global vocation which we once took for granted?